In a back alley knife fight, who are you rooting for? The Beatles or the Rolling Stones? Let's drop the needle on one of the greatest music debates in history. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock here with your latest pop fix. Every week, as you know, we go in depth on the greatest songs in pop history with the writers and the artists who created them. So it's the age-old classic argument, Beatles versus Stones. Who's the greatest of all time? I mean, definitely two of the greatest bands in rock history. The Beatles and the Rolling Stones have been mano-y-mano since before I was a glimmer in my mom's eye. I mean, you think about it, the Beatles have sold more records than anyone in history. But the Stones aren't really that far behind. Now, the Fab Four, in my opinion, win most categories, yet the Stones are still together as a band going strong 60 years later. So, as I think about it, here's my take. If you summed it up to just one song, the Stones might actually have the edge. I mean, I don't think anybody has written a better rock song than I Can't Get No Satisfaction. It's like the holy grail of rock and roll.
I can't get no satisfaction.
And yet, if you took it from the perspective of the ballad, Mick and Keith have written some great ones, but I don't think they've come close to equaling Yesterday.
Yesterday, love was such an easy game to play.
So then if we look at it from the full album, from the perspective of the full album being played song by song, cut by cut, track by track, I think the pendulum definitely swings over to the Beatles. I mean, the Stones have had their classic long plays like Beggar's Banquet, Exile on Main Street, Let It Bleed, but I mean, they or anyone would be hard-pressed to keep up with Revolver or the White Album, Rubber Soul, Abbey Road, not to mention Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which is consistently called the greatest album of all time. So the Beatles broke up at their peak, and the Stones have been together for the long run, and they've had ups and downs artistically, which is to be expected when they've had that kind of a time together. The best analogy that I can think of is that the Beatles are James Dean, while the Stones are Marlon Brando. What I mean by that is that, you know, James Dean only made 3 movies and he died at the peak of his career. And that's how the Beatles were. They made all of these phenomenal albums right in a row, and then they left before they could make anything that was mediocre. Stones are like Marlon Brando. I mean, Marlon Brando is consistently called the greatest actor of all time in many circles, but, you know, he had such a longer career than James Dean, lived into his, I believe, 70s or 80s, and, you know, he made a lot of movies, and not every single one of them was great. There was The Island of Dr. Moreau, which, you know, The Countess of Hong Kong. There were some stinkers in there. Now, the Rolling Stones, I love them. Gotta love them, but Bridges to Babylon? It's like the Stones are akin to that passionate head-over-heels love affair that rocked your world but ended with a bang. Didn't really have the long-term prospects. While the Beatles are definitely the band that you married and you rode off into the sunset with. It's the consistency, the timelessness of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. For me, that puts them over the top. But that's my take. You should share your take and why. Beatles or Stones, who's better and why in the comment section below. And while you're at it, subscribe to our channel because we have debates like this all the time. We talk about incredible songs and music, and please subscribe and help us build this thing. Help us keep the music alive. Till next time.